Good evening, everyone, and let's start today's webinar on permutation, which is one of the key topic. A lot of challenges that come across this particular topic. Uh, been talking to a lot of students over the past 2 months, and most of those are struggling and counting PNC probability. My couple of webinars were already done, out of which probability was already being considered, and I have also taken the webinar and the concepts for combination. So today, especially, I'm taking this webinar on permutation. So let's go for the agenda. It's quite similar like the other webinars. I'll be talking about math revolution and the GMAT math overview. We'll be talking about permutations in details and then the conventional approach versus math revolution approach. Today, I'm majorly focusing on the PS-based permutations, so keep your pen paper ready. So Math Revolution, after getting established in 2001 in South Korea, has launched the website in October 2015. That's our global website. And we have been well settled and promoted our courses across the globe. Uh, Plentiful of students has been taught and has offered our services, out of which 90% or plus students have scored 49 out of 51. So that's a good achievement. And we believe in the same goal that if a aspirant or a GMAT test taker needs. 45 is nowhere our goal. We always want it to be 50-51. And therefore, we have come up with variable approach for DS and IV approach for PS. And Max Lee is the person behind this aggressive approach, the world's first unique, efficient, and time saving approach. And the journey for him was not that easy. He himself appeared for 27 times into GMAT to understand the pattern and have scored many a times the Q51 perfect and have solved over 100,000 questions to get to know how does this pattern changes, how deep the concept is, what a GMAT actually requires from test taker to apply, and henceforth he came out with this particular approach. So hard work, perseverance, patience is something which he has been, he has imbibed into this approaches and has saved a lot of test takers. The characteristics of the math revolution approaches are very simple. We believe in uniqueness, so we have a world's first variable and IV approach. Math skills, it's been pretty easy for someone who is from a non-math background. Ideally, no one is from the non-math background, to be honest. We have always studied math during our high school. It's all about the momentum and how much I have actually carried that math as a part and participle of my, study, my college, my sophomores courses, or maybe the university courses and all. Quickness is something which we always talk about. It's much good if we, finish our exam 10 minutes before with a more accuracy. So that always gives us better results. Strategies for 50-51 is pretty simple, as I always talk about. Conventional approaches won't let you reach there. I don't say that none of the person can reach out to that particular place of 50-51 by applying the conventional approach, but the number are few. Wherein variable approach, your competence, your logic, your proper comprehension of the concept, questions, and error logs, along with IV approach for PS, would definitely let you go to 50-51 very easily. So let's start the today's topic, which is permutation. These are the two major important terms when it comes to the counting method, and it has been always noticed that a lot of students make mistakes when it comes to and or. So many a times the question would say and or they will, it would use this word, but most of the time it's we who has to understand what logic or concept has to be applied. So and is all about the multiplication between things, and or is all about the addition. So if we go ahead with this example, there are four shirts and five pairs of pants. And how many combinations are there that include a different shirt and a different pair of pants? Logically, if I think, suppose if I've chosen one shirt, then for that particular one shirt, I've got five pair of pants. Now, when I choose the second shirt, I'll just be left out with 4. No, I still have a 5. So what happens is, like, I'm simply doing a multiplication because it says that include a different shirt and a different pair of pants. So this and here makes a lot of meaning. So it becomes 4 times 5. The both numbers are multiplied. That gets me 20. Now let's talk about another example. John can travel from city A to city B by bus, by train, or by riding a bicycle. So to commute from city A to city B, he has got three options: either by a bus, or by a train, or by riding a bicycle. Now, how many different ways can John travel from city A to city B? When you have to talk about this, it's simple: three ways. Either he would travel by bus, or by train, or by a bicycle. I'm using and emphasizing a word or. So there is only one way of bus, one way of train, and one way of bicycle. So either by a bus, or by a train, or by a bicycle. So even if that word is not there, it is something which you could read through and get to know. Like, let's solve this question. There are three ways John can travel from city X to city Y, and there are two ways from city Y to city Z. How many ways are there for John to travel from city X to city Y? Now, is it 5 or a 6? Because I've got two numbers here, 3 and 2. From city X to city Y, it is 3. From city Y to city Z, it is 2. So still the question is it 3 times 2, which is 6? Or is it 3 plus 2, which is 5? So the answer is very simple because the keyword is and. John can travel from city X to city Y and two ways to travel from city Y to city Z. So when he has to travel from city X to city Z, it would be and, because he has to use city Y as your middle way, with that is what you could say. So that is 3 times 2, which is equals to 6. Now let's try about this question. If the probability that a bus arrives on a time is zero point 0.1, then what is the probability that three buses in a row arrive on time? Now, why did I take the probability question when I'm discussing a concept of and or? Just to make you aware that the concept can be applied anywhere. It is not confined to one particular topic. The question is all about probability, but the concept applied would be either a and or a or. I'm not sure about it right now, but let's go ahead with this question. We know and is a multiplication, or is a addition. Probability that a bus arrives is zero point 0.1. We need to find the probability that three buses in a row arrive on time. So when I say three buses in a row, suppose there are three buses and we are naming it, or we are assigning a variable called A, B, and C to it. So probability of A to arrive on time is zero point 0.1. Same is the probability for B to arrive on time is zero point 0.1. And same is the probability for bus C to arrive on time is zero point 0.1. And when we want that this three buses should in a row, they should arrive in a row, the very simple thing for this is we need to multiply. They're not asking one of the bus or either of the bus. They're asking the three buses in a row arrive on a time. That means A and B and C should arrive. So there, the and word here was hidden, and this is how you comprehend it. So always remember, the more amount of time do you spend in comprehending the question properly, the less amount of time you need to solve it. And this multiplication would not have been that difficult for us because they're asking for arrival. Probability is also given for arrival. Zero point 0.1 times zero point 0.1 times zero point 0.1. I don't have to multiply it. D and E cannot be the option. A cannot be the option. The option either goes as B and C. If I'm multiplying it three times, I need a decimal, numbers after the decimal, because I already have one number after the decimal. So my answer goes as C. Even without a multiplication, I can mark my answer as C. So never try jumping to the solution all of a sudden, just reading a half question or something. Pay attention to the question and then solve. All right. So C is the correct answer for this particular question. Let's go with the one more PS question. A clothing store sells three sizes, which are S, M, L, small, medium, and large, of sweaters in two styles, which are pullover and non-pullover. Each style comes in three colors, which are WYB, which are white, yellow, and blue. Now, if I have to understand this question, there are three sizes for pullovers and non-pullovers, which are white, yellow, and blue. So if I have a pullover, which is a white, I've got three sizes. If I have a non-pullover, which is a white, then I've got a three sizes. So now you could definitely feel that, we are comprehending it and we are getting a lot of choices into it. So how many different choices of sweater are there? And that is what they've been asking. I've got three numbers here, 3, 2, and 3. If I multiply 3 times 2 times 3, I'm getting 18. If I add up 3 plus 2 plus 3, which is 8, 8 is not in the option. So is 18 my answer? Can that be a trick if I'm not able to comprehend this question? Can that be only a trick that can save my answer? Because 8 is not, if I'm confused whether I should multiply or whether I should add up, I quickly multiply because the number is small. 3 times 2 times 3, that makes it 18. 18 is visible. 3 plus 2 plus 3, which is 8. 8 is not visible in the option side. So the only gut feeling that I could have is going with answer D, because that is something I could do. But what if eight was there? Then how would you actually, judge that what is the logic? So concept has to be very much intact. So we've got three sizes, two styles, three colors. We need all the choices. We need all the choices of sizes and styles and colors. So we'll multiply this. So multiplying gets me 18, and D is the correct answer. So there are some smart ways as well, especially in the number properties therein where you solve less, but you always get to, answer quickly. Okay, let's talk about factorials. Now, this is a recursive progression. When I say a recursive progression, what happens is if you're taking a number 7, so you take 7 and then subtract 1 out of it to make it 6, and then multiply 6 to 7 and repeat the process until you reach to 1. So when you take the product of this negative recursion, you always say that's a factorial. So it's a product of all integers from 1 to n. This is how we define. So if it's a 8 factorial, then it's 8 times 7 times 6. I would say if you could remember the factorials till 7, that would be more easier for you for a quick calculation. Like 0 factorial is 1, always remember this. 1 factorial is 1, 2 factorial is 2, 3 factorial is 6, 4 factorial is 24, 5 factorial is 120, 6 factorial is 720, and 7 factorial is 5040. If you could remember all these numbers, it would be much easier for your calculations. So the most important thing in factorial is you can expand it. Like if you're taking n minus 1 factorial here, you can expand it to n minus 1 times n minus 2 until 2, 2 and 1. We'll see one of the concept on this factorial part right now, that how we could write this factorial. So this is a special case that I've always talked about. 0 factorial is equals to 1. So 5 factorial is equals to 120. Now the concern is 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. If I'm writing it in this way, I can write it as 5 times 4 factorial, or 5 times 4 times 3 factorial, or 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 factorial. So whenever you end it up, you can end up the factorial part. Now, this is a very good question. If 510 is a factor of n factorial, what is the smallest possible value of n? This question would be definitely, so there are 10% chances of this question to fall in the counting section or the permutation section, but 90% chances would be there that this will fall in the number property. So let's try about this. If 510 is a factor of n factorial, that means whatever the n factorial value is, 510 will divide it. We need to find out what is the smallest possible value of n could be. So the only thing which I have here is n factorial, which I could write it as expanding from n minus 1, n minus 2 till 2 and 1. And there is a number which is 510. So any calculation that I can make out here is out of 510. So I start writing it in terms of a prime factors, which is the most easiest way to do it. So the first prime number that comes to my mind is 2. I'll try dividing it by 2. So I get 255 times 2. My job is done. So now next number that I have to think about, which can divide 255, and that should be a prime number, could be 3. But when I add up this 5 plus 5 plus 2, that gets me 12. So I am pretty sure that this number would be divisible by 3. When I divide it, I get 85. So I've got two prime factors right now, 2 and 3. 85 is still left out. 85 is pretty easy to write in terms of 5 and 17. So now the concern here is 17 times 5 times 3 times 2. That is the prime factor, out of which 17 is the largest prime factor. So if I could add up writing this 17 factorial, this particular n has to be greater than or equal to 17, so that when I expand it, I should definitely have 17 times 16 times so on, and I'll end up at 54321. Now this particular product series from 17 till 1 will get me 17, 5, 3 and 2, which can make out 510. The most smallest factor of 510 is 510 itself, because we're dealing with the smallest possible value. So your answer goes as 17. As simple as this. The first number that is divisible by 510 is 510 itself. So this is how we get to know the prime factor. So this is one of the uh, you know good methods. Always remember this. Get back to this video in your free time to just focus on this particular question. This is what I would recommend. So this is one of the kind of, like, we did the factorial as well, and we did the number property logic as well. Now this is pure factorial. Which of the following is equal to n plus 11 factorial plus n plus 12 factorial over 9 plus 9 factorial plus n plus 10 factorial? Now whenever you see this, always remember that the factorial, when expanded, would always end up getting lower numbers or lesser numbers than what it has. Like if I take n plus 11 out, I'll be left out with n plus 10 factorial. If I can bring such a way common so that my factorials are common and get cancelled, then my purpose is solved. And why am I telling you that? Because while reading the question, I always had a focus on the options. How do they look like? So that I don't have to solve the question and then go back to the options to see which one matches. I already know how the options are, so that whenever I solve, I should know where I have to stop my solution. Over here, if you see A, B, C, D, if all the 5 options are factorial less, they don't have any factorials. So the only thing which I have to do is, if I could get rid of that factorial sign from the numerator and denominator, and that is only possible if I could take common and cancel out, because there is a plus sign. So understanding the question is the most important thing. Solution can easily be done once you have comprehended well. So let's talk about this. There are 4 things that we are dealing here: n plus 1, n plus 9, n plus 10, and n plus 12, all in factorials. So n plus 9, let's talk. N plus 9 is the lowest. So let's try writing every one in terms of n plus 9. Why only n plus 9? Because I cannot write n plus 9 in terms of n plus 11. As I said, factorial would always give you a lower number. So I can write n plus 10 in terms of n plus 10 times n plus 9 factorial. For n plus 11, it would be n plus 11, n plus 12. No, n plus 11, n plus 10 times n plus 9 factorial. For n plus 12, it would be 12, 11, 10, and then n plus 9 factorial. Post this, when we just try to solve it in a numerator or a denominator, we could either write it in all, or we could solve it one by one. Let's solve numerator first, as the slide says. N plus 11 plus n plus 12. So what I could do here is, I could write it as n plus 11, n plus 10, n plus 9 factorial, plus n plus 12, n plus 11, n plus 10, and n plus 9 factorial. Suppose this, if I just take a common out of it, what all I can take common? So let's see, I can take n plus 11 common, n plus 10 common, n plus 9 factorial. So this whole part has been taken common. So I'm been left out with 1 plus n plus 12 here, which makes it n plus 13, n plus 11, n plus 10, and n plus 9. This is a very good catch, because most of the student feels that if the factorial is going to give me the lower number, the highest number that I have here is 12. So my answer can never ever be 13, and this is the trap. So don't over jump it. Always solve it properly. Take the common out properly. Right now we are left at the numerator with n plus 13, 11, 10, and 9 factorial. Let's talk about the denominator now. It's pretty simple. I can take n plus 9 factorial common so that I'm left with n plus 1 plus 10, which is n plus 11. Now let's have all the factors together. So the numerator was 13, 11, 10, and 9 factorial. Denominator is 11 and 9 factorial. So n plus 11 and n plus 11 gets cancelled, n plus 9 and n plus 9 factorial gets cancelled. So I am end up at 9 plus 13 and sorry, n plus 13 and n plus 10. So my answer goes as A. Now let's move to the permutation exactly. So far we were just doing about the factorials and everything that has been associated with the permutation. The word arrangement itself says permutation. And this is the basic catch of understanding. Should I apply NPR? Should I apply permutation? Should I apply combination? Combination is all about selection. Permutation is all about arrangement. So if I've got two letters A and B, I can arrange it in two ways, A and B or B or A. But when I have to select, doesn't matter, am I selecting A first and B secondly, or B first or A secondly? So the number of possible arrangements of R number of things when chosen from a set of N number of things happens to be NPR. The most important thing to remember here is this R can be equal to N or less than N. R will never ever be greater than N. This is the formula that we always write. It's N factorial over N minus R factorial. This is how we solve this. Let's take an example. We have to elect two executives from 5 board members. The first person elected will be the president, and the second person elected will be the vice president. So I have to just make an arrangement. I don't have to select because it's the first and the second. Order matters. It's the first person elected has to be president, and the second person elected has to be a vice president. So for the first thing, if I say for the first person, I've got 5 choices, but for the second person, I've just got a 4 choices as the president would have been elected. So I'm end up at getting 5 times 4, which is 20. This is a conventional and the most better way to solve a permutation questions. If you directly want to apply the formula, you could definitely see that out of 5 people, you need 2 people in together, which would be president or a vice president. So that will be 5p2. 5p2 is NCR, that's a 5 factorial. So 5p2 is equals to 5p3, which is equals to 20. Let's talk about this question. 10 runners are participating in a race. How many different ways can the runners finish first, second, and third places? Now, see, there are no ties. That is what it is being given, and everyone is finishing the race. Now, they've already talked about an order which is first, second, and third. So that's a permutation question. So for the first position, I will have 10 runners. For the second position, I can have only 9 runners. And for the third position, I can have only 8 runners. Indirectly, I need an arrangement of 3 people or 3 runners out of 10 runners in total, which is 10p3. So my final answer goes as 10 times 9 times 8, which is 720. So either you go with the direct formula, which is 10p3, either you go with looking out for the first position, second position, and third position availability. So D is the correct answer here. Let's talk about the advanced theory. The number of possible arrangement of R number of things when chosen from a set of N number of things. This is the basic definition of permutation. And this is where I was talking about. The permutation questions are solved by understanding the problem and avoid using the formula NPR. For example, 5 horses are in race and we are picking up the first, second, and third place winner. So for the first, I've got 5, 4, and 3. So that happens to be 60. So, you know, it's pretty well, if you're going to go with this particular method of, looking at the places and the availability, you will definitely comprehend the question as they want you to comprehend, and you'll end up with the correct answer. 3-digit codes are to be assigned to each member of a certain club. So there are 3 digits that I need. Each of the 3 digits can be 1, 3, 5, 7, or 9. How many possible codes are there? Now, when I say that I have 3 digits to be considered, out of which I've got 5 digits from which I will be considering it, like 1357 or 9. They never said that repetition is not allowed. So for me, it's like, for the first place, I have 5 choices of the digit. For the second, I've again got 5. For third, I've again got 5, which happens to be 5 cube, which is a 125. So rather than applying a formula of 5 to 3, I can do it directly. Now let's talk about this. There are 10 time slots. If 6 applicants will be scheduled in this time slots with 1 applicant per time slot, how many different ways can this applicant be scheduled? Pay attention to the options. They're in terms of negative recursion. There's no proper number or final answer to it. So for the first slot, I've got 10 applicants. For the next slot, I'll have 9, and so on. So the answer is very simple. It's 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. That's it. See, never ever end up writing that first applicant can have 10 slots. The first slot can have 10 applicants. Always remember. So it's a word choice that actually creates a trouble. A 4-digit code consists of digits from 0 through 8. This is a very important question. The first digit cannot be 0, and any digit may only be used once. Conditions are applied here. Repetition is not allowed. First digit cannot be 0. We need to form 4-digit code. How many different 4-digit codes are possible? Very simple. 0 cannot be the first place and no digit can be used. So now from 0 to 8, I have got 9 digits. Now let's go and understand to fill the first place. For the first digit place, I have total 8 choices because I cannot take 0. For the second place, again, I'll have 8 choices because I can take 0 into it, but I cannot take the number which is got fixed. So total numbers are 9, out of which one is fixed. I'm still left out with 8. So I've got 8 and 8. So the remaining two places are almost done. There will be 7 and 6. So now when 8 times 8 multiply, you get 4 as a unit digit. 4 times 7 multiply, you get 8 as a unit digit. 8 times 6 multiply, you get 8 as a unit digit. So my answer would be B. So I don't have to multiply all in total. So this is wherein, it's all about a focus. If you see, because while reading the question, I had attention to the options as well, which is says A, C, and D are ending up with 0. E is ending up with 4 and B is ending up with 8. I was lucky enough to pass through this. So I don't have to multiply all in total. I can just get a unit digit multiplication to get to know the answer was B. So these are some smart ways which you should often try while you are practicing, while you're preparing your topics and you're solving a lot of questions. It's okay if you're not able to solve a question in 2 minutes time when you're preparing for GMAT or you have started. Once your accuracy will be in your hand, you'll be automatically taking less amount of time. All right, let's go ahead with the same letters. This is quite a common question. So if you have a same letter in n things, we often divide it by the repetition. So that is the most important part. Like P thinks of one type, Q thinks of another type, and R thinks of yet another type, and becomes P plus Q plus R. So let's apply this to an example. Ways the letter of the word coffee can be used to form different words. So all in total, I've got 6 letters here. For arranging the 6 letters, I'll have 6 factorial ways. But since there are repetition of F and E, I'll divide it by 2 factorial, 2 factorial, 1 factorial, and 1 factorial. So my final answer, 6 factorial is 720 and 2 factorial into 2 factorial is 4, which happens to be 180. If we solve this question, which has a word called success, I've got 3 and 3, 6 and 7 letters. So I'll arrange with them 7 factorial. And then I'll divide it by 3 factorial because S is for 3 times. I'll divide it by 2 factorial also because C is for 2 times. And then I have U and E as single. So I'll divide it by 1 factorial. So we have 5 parking spots. So 5 parking spots are arranged in a row. And how many different ways can this parking spots be filled with 3 identical blue cars? one red car, and one white car. So if you see, I've just got one red car, one white car. See, five parking spots can be filled by five factorial ways. So 120 is there on the page, but again, I've got three identical blue cars. So now what happens in over here is I have to divide it because those blue cars are same. So it's like B, 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 R, and W. So I'll divide it by 3 factorial, 1 factorial, 1 factorial. That happens to be 20. My answer is B. So I'm dividing 120 by 3 factorial. 3 factorial is 6. So that is 120 over 20. Sorry, 120 over 6, which gets me 20. Now let's talk about the restrictions on the order. What does it mean? If there are restrictions on the order of certain letters, so treat those different letters that are restricted as the same letter. So there would be many questions in which they may say vowels should come together, consonants should come together. So if you have something like this, we always consider that to be a one letter. For example, X, Y, and Z are arranged in order, but X is always before Y. Now this is a restriction. No matter how do you arrange the three letters, X has to be always there before Y. Now, if that is the case, that X has to be always there before a Y, then the most important thing is the order and the restriction. When you say X is always there between Y, treat it as the same letter. So there are two X and there is one Z. So I've considered that Y also as an X. So X, X, and Z. So now what I've got is three letters to be arranged with the three factorial ways, and there are two repetitions. So this is what we say when there has to be a restriction, always consider that it to be a single letter. Consider the restriction as a single letter and your job is done. So 3 factorial over 2 factorial gives you 3. Alice, Bobby, Cindy, Darren, and Eddie, that is A, B, C, D, and E, participate in a marathon. If each of them finishes the marathon and no two or three athletes finish at the same time, in how many different possible orders can the athletes finish the marathon so that Alice finishes before Bobby and Bobby before Cindy? A before B and B before C. This is wherein the restrictions coming through. So we have this letter already with us, A, B, and C. So our runners are A, B, C, D, and E. And this is an order problem, first of all, and then we have a restricted as well. So A has to come before B and B has to come before C. So we could take all this three as A, and then we are just left out with D and E. So now in this particular fashion, I've got five letters to be arranged by five factorial ways divided by three identical A's and then a D and then a E. So that happens to be 3 factorial, 1 factorial, 1 factorial. That gets me again 120 over 6. That's just a coincidence, but the answer is 20. So whenever the restriction happens, if you consider them to be a single letter, your job is done. You won't take much of the time to solve possible arrangements. Let's talk about the applied permutation problem. These are the sort of the questions majorly seen. Number of shortest route that exists between the point P and Q on this particular grid. So we always see the repeated letters in the words. We'll solve a question on this. Let's try this question. So what we do exactly here is, for the vertical rows, we have marked a letter A, and for the horizontals, we have marked B. Now, we have got three letters which are A, and we've got two for B and B. All in total, I've got 5 rows. I've got 5 rows. So I can make arrangement as a 5 factorial. I can choose 5 factorial ways for this row, out of which there are 3 identical A's and 2 identical B's. So I'll divide it by 3 factorials and 2 factorials. Let's make my answer as 10. Let's try one more question on this. In the figure above, how many of the shortest routes between P and Q exist? We'll simply write it the same way. We'll repeat the letters. We'll just divide those into. So for the vertical roads or steps, we're going to write A. For the horizontal road or steps, we're going to write B. So again, I'll end up writing A and B in the figure on the slide. I'll have 3 A's And for the horizontals, I have got 4 Bs. Or in total, I've got 7 rows. I can choose by 7 factorial ways. But with an identical A's and B's, I have to divide it by 3 factorials and 4 factorials. So out of 7 factorial, 4 factorial is almost gone. So I'm just left out with 765 over 3 factorial. 3 factorial is 6 itself. So I'm just left out with 7 times 5, which is 35. The total number of shortest route that I can have from this P and Q are 35. Let's talk about this. We have A, then we have one number, one letter, that's B, and then C. And there has to be an order, A to B and then B to C. So how would you write the, the vertical steps or the horizontal steps in this sort of question? But we need to understand we have to go from A to B, and then the shortest route is from B to C. So in that manner, how do we write it as? Let's try first solving for A to B. So what I did, from A to B, if you see, I've written X and X for the vertical and W for the horizontal steps. So I've got 2X, I've got 2W, that means I've got 4 rows, out of which there are 2 factorial repetition, that means 6. So there are 6 shortest route from A to B. Now let's try from B to C. How does it look like? So from B to C, there is only one vertical step, and there are 2 horizontal steps. So I've taken it as Z and Y. So now I've got total 3 rows, out of which 2 factorials are identical. So I've ended up getting 3. Now let's combine all this, A to B to C. So that means multiply. So it's from A to B and B to C. So from A to B, we had 6 routes. And from B to C, we have 3 routes. So all in total, we get 6 times 3, which is 18. Simple. So you need to break the journey, and just apply the concept of, horizontal, vertical steps, and you're done. All right, let's go ahead with the another logic, circular permutation, one of the most key topic. So circular permutation, always remember n people when sit across the circle or a table or a circular table, you will always get the permutation or total arrangement as n minus 1 factorial, because the left and the right changes, that is set. Doesn't matter a person changing from A to B or B to C, it's only the left or the right. But if the position are fixed, always remember this, if the positions are fixed, then it is a regular permutation. Let's talk with an example here. If we have to set 5 people A, B, C, D, and E in a row, and then around a round table, then any one way in which we set the 5 around the round table translates to 5 unique row orders. This all looks same. Like in a row, we have got A, B, C, D, E, B, C, D, E, A. So we've got 5 ways. Around a round table, it would be only one way. So if you want to set a round table like A, B, C, D, E seated in a row, would be 5 factorial ways. You could always make them set. So let's call the number of ways those 5 would fit around a round table X. So equivalent ratios is 5 rows is to 1 order. 5 factorial is your possible permutation. So your ratio becomes 5 factorial over X equals to 5 over 1. That is your given ratio. This happens to be your 5X equals to 5 factorial. That makes it X equals to 4 factorial, which is 5 minus 1. And this is we get N minus 1 factorial. But you just have to remember that if there is a position is not fixed, if there are N people around a round table, it would be N minus 1 factorial. 5 chairs surround a big round table in a class. Each of the 5 students A, B, C, D, E sit on one of the chairs. A must sit opposite from the whiteboard and B must sit next to A. There is something fixed here, but not everything. How many sitting arrangements are there? We're dealing with a circular permutation. But if the number gets fixed, we have a regular permutation. We have total 5 chairs. We've got total 5 students A, B, C, D, E. with a condition that A has to sit opposite to the whiteboard and B has to sit next to A. Next to A could be either a left or a right. Both arrangements are possible. Suppose the whiteboard is in front, so A would be opposite. So this is one of the way. B can sit to the left of it, and then we have got three different people. So A sits into one position, B sits into one position. So now those three chairs left will have three factorial ways we could arrange them. So we have six ways total for this. But there is this possibility as well, therein where B is on the right. Still, we have got six ways to arrange those. A can only be arranged in one way because it has to sit opposite to whiteboard. B can only be arranged in this way, so that is only one chance. The remaining three people can have three factorial arrangement, which are six. All in total, we will have 12 arrangements. Either B sits to the left of A or to the right of A. So that happens to be OR condition, a hidden word OR, which is addition. So that happens to be 6 plus 6, which is 12. So never ever get confused with there are five students sitting circular 5 minutes, 1, 4 factorial, which is 24. Read to the condition, there is strict arrangements here. Four men and four women are sitting around a round table. What is the number of seating patterns with alternating men and women? When you say alternating men and women, the very simple concept is between every two men, there has to be a woman or a vice versa. So if we could fix one, the another can get easily fixed. So we have to look at the two groups separately. So let's start by placing women's first. So I've got four women and I have to make them sit around a round table. That would be 4 minus 1 factorial. So that happens to be 3 factorial. Now between this, I've got 4. Now what happens with this 4 men? Always remember that converts into a regular permutation question because I have to just arrange them. The circular condition was already been taken by the woman. Now I've just got four choices to make this men's set. So I could arrange them in a 4 factorial ways. That is 4p4. So there is, I don't have to do 3 factorial here. I don't have to reapply the circular because the only possible places where M can sit now so that there is always an alternate gender is between those women, and those places are only four, so arrangements will be done out of those four places. That means I'm actually talking about the regular permutation or the normal way that I'm doing. How do we arrange the four things? By 4 factorial ways. And now when we have to make set all of this, because the question itself says and, then I have to multiply this. So it's 3 factorial times 4 factorial, which is 24 times 6 is 144. So now difference between a permutation and combination, if you know, order of the list is very much important in permutation, like first, second, third, and all those. Combination, the order is not important. It's all about unique groups. If we talk about this example, a certain drama club consists of 10 members. There are 10 members here. We have to select 3 members. The word select itself says a combination 10C3. 3 members are chosen, parent, child, and teacher. Order is clearly important. If you're choosing 3 members like parent, child, and teacher, so first has to be a parent. There are 10 choices for parent, 9 choices to be a child, 8 choices to be a teacher. So that happens to be 720. But if you're just making a combination out here, then it would be 10, 9, and 8 divided by. So it would be always 10, 9, 8 divided by 3 factorial because that's a combination. And once that is done, it would be 120. The more and more you understand and comprehend and use a conventional or easy way by placing the availability, the more easier it would be for you to solve the permutation questions. Combination is always been applied using the combination formula. For permutation, and let me tell you once also that, the number that you get after permutation is uh, bigger than comparison to the combination. So let's say we need to create a 3-digit number. The first and the third digits are even, and the second is odd. So condition given. Now again, understand first digit can be any even number. As so we have 2, we have 4, we have 6, we have 8. Zero cannot be considered as the first place. So I've got 4 choices. Second digit could be 13579. Got a 5 choices. Third digit could be 24680 also, because it's been not said that we cannot repeat the number. So it becomes 4 times 5 times 5, which is 100. But if we go with a combination, if we have to just select the 3 students out of 6, I'll make it at 63 or 6p3 over 3 factorial, which is 20. The ratio of permutation questions to combination question is 1:5. I mean, there are a lot of combination questions asked. And the reason behind that is maybe, the combination has a higher weightage just because probability has a higher weightage, and combination question, probability questions are majorly solved through the combination concept. But permutation, of course, being placed very well during into the PS questions. If not into DS, then PS holds a lot. There are 8 pairs of figure skaters performing for Winter Olympics, out of which 3 pairs will be awarded. You just have to select the 3 pairs, doesn't matter which one it is, 8C3. That's a simple combination. There are 3 red marbles, 4 blue marbles, and 3 yellow marbles in a box. If 2 marbles are selected at random, the word itself is so bold, selected at random. We're doing a probability question here. 2 marbles are selected out of 10, 10C2. We just need to select 2 marbles that pays 4C2. So that becomes 2 over 15. So this is something that shows a application of combination. Let's try this question together. 7 patients are trying to make an appointment at doctor's office next Monday from 9 a.m. to noon. During this 3 hours, the doctor accepts only 1 patient per hour. That means he can maximum accept 3 patients. Is that so? And what if the patient doesn't turn up? Let's not fall for it. Let's go ahead. If the number of ways to order 3 patients in this time frame is m, and number of group of any 3 patients that could have their appointment on that Monday is n, then what is the value of m plus n? The question looks difficult, but it is not, to be honest. Understand, 9 a.m., any of the 7 patient at 9 a.m., any of the 7 patient can be given an appointment. At 10 a.m., I'll have 6 patients to give an appointment. At 11, I've just got 5. So total number of permutation that I have here is 7 times 6 times 5, which is 210, which is m. Now let's talk about n. It says group of any 3 patients. Any 3 patients, that means order is not important. When order is not important, that means I have to just select any 3 out of it. There are total 7. I have to select 3. That is 7p3, which is 210 divided by 3 factorial, which happens to be 35. So simply add 210 and 35, which gives me 245. So this is a blind question for permutation and combination. Oh, one of the good question, to be honest. All right. So here, we end up the permutation property. There were not much to be applied as an approach, but again, there are a couple of things that have made you understand how do we actually answer these questions. And you please go often to all those past videos as well, because on especially on the absolute value inequalities and number properties and all those, so that you're very much familiar with this. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of you who are attending the webinar today are very well aware about this fact, that we have a solution, then we have a trial pack for 7 days, then we have a shortcut that is for like 1 month. This is a special, I always recommend whosoever is been just 15 or 20 days next to their exam, they can often prefer to have a shortcut. And if you're a beginner, you can always go with all in 1 month. If you feel like having a tutoring, you can always talk to us. If you want to talk to me directly over the call, you can definitely book a call through Calendly. The links are there on the website of mathrevolution.com, or it's there on the GMAT Club as well. And you can often write me an email directly at puneet@mathrevolution.com. Any inquiry if you have for the courses, for the contents, then you should definitely have info@mathrevolution.com. Math Revolution again coming up with their live online classes in the month of March. So we'll be looking forward to you as well. Our videos are also uploaded onto GMAT Club websites as well. So you can often take chances to look over those. with the same thought, I say good night to everyone. Thank you so much for your patience and attending the today's webinar. It was really nice talking to you. Thank you and goodbye.